Hi guys, and welcome to the CCR question 3 when we're looking at the question, how did your production skills develop throughout this project? So I'm going to do a little screen recording of my media blog so far and show you some of the posts that I've done about the camera and editing workshops, the actual shoot day itself, and some of the planning involved for that. So let's get this screen recording going. Here we go. So first thing we will have a look at is how I used the camera workshops to develop my skills. So we had about 6 or 7 camera workshops with Matt, one of the media teachers here at school, and we looked at how, you know, initially I was an amateur filmmaker. I'd never done much of this before, and I learnt techniques, you know, such as bubbling, learning how to change the white balance, the 180-degree rule, shot composition, white balance, things like that, and they were all shown through these practical sessions. So here is the first one. It was a creativity workshop. So we actually did this one in the editing suite with Matt, and he sort of talked to us about what, you know, makes a good idea. And this was on our idea making stage of the process when we were just thinking about what a film would be about, and he gave us some really cool tips when we were brainstorming ideas and working as a group. So myself, Nate, Yasmin and Phoebe, we looked at many examples because we knew we wanted to do the sci-fi genre, and took little bits, like little nuggets of gold from each of these films to try and make ours, you know, as professional and as good as possible. Then look at our practical session 2, which was Introduction to Cameras. This was our first lesson in the TV studio. First thing, we got hold of these Blackmagic cameras, which we'll be using for all of our coursework while we're here at Hurtwood. And we also looked at how to set up a tripod, and this may sound simple, but it's very important that you get the right height, and we put sort of subjects within the camera lens in order to focus in on a camera and just turn it on. It was basically the bare basics of filmmaking, but it was really important that we mastered that before going on to anything more complicated in further sessions. On to our next one, which was practical session 3 and 4. So this we sort of took things a little bit further. We were filming and editing a basic sequence. So over these couple of lessons, we looked at how we film our opening sequence, and it gave us sort of a real idea of how that would work. So first we came up with the idea of just someone walking into camera, checking their phone and walking out, and something as simple as that really took a lot of our technique that we'd learned in the previous lesson and made it, you know, for us to work on. So I walked in and looked at my phone and walked out. So we filmed those shots, lots from different angles, and then the next day we went into the editing suite and did a basic editing of that. This helped our editing. We learnt basic editing skills at this point, like just cutting an image together. There was no dialogue in this, so we concentrated solely on the camera work and the editing of images together and try and make a smooth running and to make it as professional as possible. We also learnt about shot composition. You can see the screenshot just there on the post, and it sort of showed that when you're filming it, you know, the screen of the camera could be split into 9 squares, and how you position things in these squares. So you put something in the middle or something in the top left corner, the top right corner, whatever. These different positions can make something look completely different, and this is what we learned in this session. On to our next 2 sessions, which are practical session 5 and 6, and this was filming and editing a sequence once again, but this time it was with dialogue. Although it's just one extra thing, it's a very hard thing especially when it comes to editing, to master and to give that professional look. And it's in these 2 sessions in particular which really helped me and allowed me to make our Subject 17 opening sequence look as realistic as possible. So the skills learned in these 2 sessions were crucial for when it came to our own making of our actual sequence. So it was myself and Anna. We did a stupid little sequence about oranges, and although the narrative was silly and not something you would use, the filming we shot once again from lots of different angles, and we had a little bit of dialogue between 2 people. So it was the same principle. We used all the rules we had learnt, so like to make sure the tripod was well set up, which we learnt in the first session, shot composition that we learnt in session 3 and 4, and in this one we also had a bit of a lesson at the start about 180-degree rule. This is when you can't cross the line. There's an imaginary line between the camera and the actors, and if you cross that, it makes things seem reversed when the audience watch the final product. White balance is sort of the quality of the picture, and it changes depending on if inside or outside. And bubbling is something you can do to ensure the camera looks straight, or indeed the angle that you want it to, and this bubble allows you to do that. So we learnt these skills at the start and then brought this into this session. In terms of the editing for this, it was a lot harder. We used the stuff we learnt in the previous editing session to make this image flow nicely, but also we also looked at the importance of the audio and how you do the picture first and add the audio in later. And if you can add the audio in later seamlessly, then you're on a way to making a professional piece. So let's have a look at some of the planning we did. So as a group, I didn't realise, I think, before I started this project, how much there is involved in the planning in the pre-production stage of things. I learned a lot through the camera and editing workshops and learned how to make it look professional, but we had to do lots of practice, and in terms of things like storyboards and location hunting, a test shoot, communication between myself and the group and the actors we wanted to use. There was a lot of planning and preparation that was needed, and this is a skill that has certainly developed throughout this project, which I didn't realise was needed. So if we have a quick look through these, we had a test shoot. The test shoot was filmed on an iPhone, and it was in a set that we wouldn't be using, so it wasn't great quality. Storyboard, which was beautifully drawn by Nate, and was a very important thing which we could show. We then move on to the set design. There was a little model made once again by Nate, he's the artist within the group, which had our large glass perspex box, which is a massive centrepiece of our design, and put some ideas and using lights to show the shadows we were potentially looking to have during our shoot day. So all these little plans, even though it was a model, a prototype if you like, we could see that, for example, this glass bit on the side, you can see in the image here, that was not going to work for us on the day. So by having these practices and planning, the skill developed of learning what was right and what isn't right. And so when we got to the shoot day, we knew exactly what we wanted and what we didn't want, and we learnt this in particular from the prototype set design. I took a key role in the communication section of things, so I've got a couple of screenshots of some of the WhatsApp communications we had as a group. It's important to communicate and make sure, when people think of new things, they can just tell the rest of the group by sticking it on a WhatsApp group or some form of communication. And this planning skill has developed, and it's something I look to take into, with a lot more care next year when we think about the music videos. Any music video I see or things which might help our group, I can just put it on a communication group, and we can discuss the idea next time we're in. It means that we're constantly thinking about how we can make our piece better, not only when we have designated times of a media session, for example. We continue on to location hunting and costume design. Costume design is an extremely important part of any opening sequence. It's a piece of mise-en-scène that is a clear indicator to the audience about the role or occupation of a character, and in something like an opening sequence, you don't have long for the audience to establish who and what each person is, and we tried to show that through the costume design. And we used sort of genre conventions from other sci-fi films to, like the lab jackets, for example, to coincide with what we wanted. And location hunting, this was a big part. Initially, we wanted to do it in a shipping container, and then we thought about going into the woods and have more of a sort of outside lab. And we went through lots of different things, and we tried to test shoots in these places, and we realised they didn't work. And once again, that's another example of how the planning part of this production has made me think about it more, and it's developed a skill that I didn't realise I needed to have, which I can take into next project. And of course, last and certainly not least, shoot day itself. There's a shoot day reflection video here which sort of explains everything and shows how I felt about how the day went, but it's very clear in this post how I explain how my skills have developed, and from the stage where we made that initial stupid sequence about oranges, if you watch that and then Subject 17, I think it's a clear difference in the quality of not only the filming, which I learnt from the camera work, not only the editing, from which we learnt in the editing sessions, but it's a clearer structure, it's a clearer narrative, and that's all through the planning and preparation as well. So hopefully throughout this quick screen recording, you can notice how my production skills have developed throughout this project, and yeah, see you again soon.